colleagues, and friends. Kambria Evans here, the teaching and learning EMDR consultant. Y'all know we love talking about therapy intensives here at Zero Disturbance. I've been talking about it for years. We have our intensive design kit available now for all therapists, and I have just been getting so many questions from people about how to do intensives, not just the clinical piece, but just kind of the logistical piece and the practice design piece. And it's been so much fun for me to support people that way. And if you are somebody who has maybe been thinking about implementing intensives, you've heard about them, you want to see how different people are setting it up, today's episode is going to be a fantastic episode for you. Now, I am going to be spotlighting two guests today, Christie Pearl and Jennifer Jenkins-Boitnott, both in Virginia, and both of these ladies have their own private practices as EMDR therapists and are also offering EMDR consultation groups that are focused on EMDR intensives, right? This is a very high value offering. So they'll be offering that in 2022. And I wanted to have them on to talk about kind of their journey in terms of their why. Why did you set up EMDR intensives? What was that process like for you? What did you learn? What would you tell yourself now that you're at the other side? What would you tell yourself when you were kind of at the beginning? And they're both just very clinically creative. They're both fantastic entrepreneurs, very successful people. So I hope you find a lot of benefit from listening to our conversation today. So I am here hanging out with two people that I get to talk to quite often, both in the consultation program with me this year. And I've really come to know you guys, trust you guys, love you guys, just really think so highly of you. And I was so excited to learn that you love doing EMDR intensives and you are going to be offering these EMDR consult groups focusing on EMDR intensives. I was like so excited to hear about that. So of course, wanted to have you guys come on and let people know that. And so we'll be talking about that today. Do you want to introduce yourself and kind of let people know who you are or where you are before we start talking?
Yeah,
sure. Go ahead, Jennifer.
All right. I'm Jennifer Jenkins-Boitnott. I am a licensed professional counselor, certified EMDR therapist, and EMDR approved consultant. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. And I have two businesses. I have my private practice, C-Glass LLC, and then I have my new business baby, my consulting and training practice, Simply Rewire, EMDR training and consulting.
That's a cool name. I love the name.
Oh, thank you.
Very cool. Awesome. Glad you're here. Christie, tell us a little bit about you before we start talking.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Christie Pearl, and I'm also in Virginia. I'm a little ways down the road from Jennifer, so it just kind of worked out that we're geographically pretty close together. But I just recently came back to Virginia after living in Massachusetts for almost 30 years. So I actually practice in Massachusetts and in Virginia. I'm also a certified EMDR therapist. I'm a consultant in training, so I'm working towards being an approved consultant. And Jennifer and I are birthing our business babies at the same time. So I have my clinical practice and where I historically have worked with, people with complex relational trauma, adult children of alcoholics, and other types of dysfunctional family dynamics. And now I am shifting gears and I am focusing on building this consultation program that I'm going to be offering. I'm so excited. And I'm just so excited to be here. So thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so glad we're hanging out. I think we were talking before I started recording that we're going to try our best to not start cracking up, and we're used to talking a lot, I think, really casually, but it'll be fun to do this today. So I'm hoping that folks can maybe get a sense of kind of like your journey around kind of maybe why you started doing intensives, how it's been for you. And then, I think we get a lot of questions around like, how do I start? What does it have to look like? And I think that there's no answer in terms of like a one size fits all. So I think people get a lot of value about hearing different people's experiences as clinicians about like the why and like what it looked like for them. So I'm curious if y'all would want to share that for people to kind of hear different examples. Maybe we'll start with you, Jennifer.
Sure. Yeah. Let's see. So I started my my private practice, C-Glass, in 2019, and I started in the summer, fall of that year, and I think it was in the spring of that year, I went to a training with Katie O'Shea on the early childhood trauma protocol, and she talked a lot at that training about how she does intensives, and which is very different than how I do intensives, but I loved how she talked about it. And I'd heard a little bit about intensive sessions before that, and I liked the idea. But that just kind of really planted the seed for me that was something that I wanted to work toward doing. And so at that point in time, in like spring 2019, it was like, okay, well, you can do intensives after you're in your own practice, after you drop insurance, after all these like long list of things happened, that it was this really like kind of like long-term goal. And then, so once I got things going in my private practice in 2019, at the end of 2019, then it was originally my goal for 2020 to, that's funny, right? Goals for 2020. I know. But it was my goal for 2020 to completely drop insurance and to be able to move into doing intensives. And that, pandemic kind of turned that on its head. So then through, and I think it was also early 2020, maybe like early on in the pandemic, that I found Kambria, which I think it was probably on like some rabbit hole on the Facebook scrolling somewhere, that I found your video. And I think it was like one of the ones that you did for like free EMDR resources for therapists. And I watched it and I just absolutely loved your energy. And I started researching you on the internet, and I was like, oh, all these things that this lady does in her practice, like, this is what I want to grow my practice into. This is amazing. And so I kind of wasn't really thinking about intensives at that point. But I just wanted to get to know you.
I'm so glad you reached out too, because, I have to say, Jennifer, I've worked with you for a while now, even before the consultation program, just kind of more in regular consultation groups. And I've always appreciated your, like your teaching ability in our consultation groups. I kind of oftentimes think of you as like a co-teacher in those groups, being responsive to about their clinical questions or clinical reasoning skills. But also really kind of, the practice building pieces. I feel I quickly noticed that you were really responsive and able to give them some really great advice, and really advice that I wasn't able to give, especially around like insurance and kind of early practice building things. You have a lot of expertise there. So it was a mutual for us to connect.
Yeah. And I absolutely love that piece of, that piece of consultation. And I feel like one of the things that I, learned very quickly with EMDR when I would start to connect with other people, about, especially people who had clinical questions, or like people who were more newly trained than I was, at the beginning, was just like, I love talking about EMDR, and I just really like helping people figure out, how to. I feel like there's so much with EMDR to learn, and as a clinician, like figuring out how to implement it, that so many people get so overwhelmed. I was definitely overwhelmed at the beginning too. And so I think everybody is. This is like a rule. You have to be overwhelmed in the beginning. And yeah, I really like I get really excited about helping people see like, oh no, it's not that complicated. Like, here, let me help you. Like, this is the answer. Do it this way.
Yes.
Or don't do it that way. Do it this other way. Yes, I love, that's just kind of how my brain works. Like I simplify things. That's how I understand them. Which is what it's been for like EMDR. It's like, okay, I had to simplify all the content into what made sense to me with building my own business and helping other people. I've done a lot of consultation with other therapists, mostly local therapists, who kind of did the similar path of like, they were in a group practice and they left and wanted to go solo, and giving them some guidance on what to do, what not to do. And yeah, I get really excited talking to people about all of those things.
Well, I think one of the most fun parts about being like a really relatable, empathic teacher is when we can just say like, yeah, I did that and it totally blew up in my face and it was the wrong thing to do, and like maybe steer clear of that. Right. So I've appreciated that, getting to know you, you have both kind of these like success stories. You have these things of like, don't do that. I mean, you're just very transparent about that with our community of consultations that we have. And I'm remembering when you started to launch your intensives, I'm remembering how surprised you were at how much demand there was. Like I can remember your
I got shocked.
Do you want to talk a little bit about why that surprised you?
I just like, it was oh my gosh. It was like, so I had it in my head for so long that like the only way to do intensives was to not take insurance. And that there was no way to do it together. And then as we started doing more consultation together and I started learning more and more about intensives and how to actually do them, I was like, well, if there's anyone who can figure out how to make it work with insurance, that would be me. Because I feel like not that I enjoy insurance, but I feel like I've encountered so many different insurance issues and problems and situations over the years, and like just had to figure out how to resolve it. I was like, okay, there has to be a way. So I figured out how to kind of blend it with insurance. And so I just was surprised. I didn't expect that people who could use their insurance for a regular session, and do EMDR in a regular session. I was just surprised that they wanted to pay extra, honestly. I wasn't surprised that they liked the format. I mean, that I think as soon as I started talking to people about it, it seems like a no-brainer. Everybody I've done an intensive with every client I've done an intensive with has loved the format and preferred it. So that didn't surprise me as much of just like, and I guess they go hand in hand, but I really expected, especially like we were still in a pandemic, like I just like I just didn't think people would be willing to sign up and pay extra money.
I've noticed in my practice, just, people haven't been able to go anywhere, and like people have all bought stuff, I think, for their house because we're just in our houses, but like there's a lot of vacations happening or traveling happening. For the most part. We've had these moments of that, but I've noticed that a lot of clients have said to me, well, yeah, I want this intensive. I want to feel better because I'm just stuck with myself. Like I can't go anywhere, right, to escape myself. And so if I can't go to Disneyland, I want to clear out my trauma or something like that. Right?
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome. Well, it's been so much fun to see your practice kind of explode with intensive work. And I'm curious if you kind of had to go back to yourself before you started to be in this model, is there something that you would tell yourself or something that you would say to yourself that would feel helpful? This is just thinking about people watching who are just starting intensives or thinking about getting some consultation with intensives.
Yeah. I think my advice to my former self would just be to, like to get out of my own way, because I get a little tunnel vision sometimes about like how to do something. And that once I decide like it's going to be a certain way, I sometimes don't zoom out and see that there are other avenues to reach the same goal. And so I think that would be my advice to myself, would just be to like take a moment, like pause, zoom out, figure out what is it that you want to act, like what's the goal. If the goal is to be able to start offering intensives, then what are the various different ways that you can start to do that? Because that was the other biggest hurdle for me, was like, and I've heard this a lot already. I'm sure, Kambria, you've heard this a ton of times, of like, well, how am I going to fit it in? Like, I don't know how to fit it in. Like, I'm already busy. I'm already tired. I'm already overbooked. I already don't have openings. How am I going to fit in longer sessions? And so like, there was like all these things that were like in the way, but they weren't really in the way. It was just like, how do you start experimenting to just do it a little bit? It doesn't have to be, all or nothing, but just to start to play with it and see, where does it fit? Where does it, where can I shift things around? Where, I have a person on my schedule, where can I move them to give myself a chunk of time, to give myself that flexibility to try it out.
Yes. That's huge. That is a question I hear a lot. And I'm glad that you brought that up. Because, I don't know a lot of therapists right now that are like, oh, I have so much space on my calendar.
Yeah.
Let's squeeze something in there. Right?
Yeah. And once I started really small. I started doing like 90-minute sessions with like a handful of existing clients that we were already doing EMDR. And that was like the gateway. That was like the window. And then as soon as I saw how much better 90 minutes felt, I was like, oh, okay. If 90 minutes feels this good, then what can I do with 2 hours or 3 hours of time? And
were you
then
doing
just
in person, or I think you were doing a mix, right? A mix of those.
I have done all my extended sessions. I've done in person, which at the point earlier this time, I started doing it like early summer 2020. I mean, not 2020, geez, 2021. We are now at the end of 2021. It just kind of all feels the same.
It is, because it is the same.
Right? This is going in circles. So at that particular point in time, in Virginia, things were COVID wise, things were pretty good. So I really prefer doing EMDR in person than virtually. I've done plenty of it virtually at this point, but so I started to experiment with the longer sessions and experiment in person at the same time.
Wow. I think once we put on that like hat of like, I'm an experimenter, I'm an innovator, and it kind of becomes part of it starts to feel a little bit less scary. Like it doesn't
totally
out as much, like this is just normal. And I think COVID has pushed us to do that in a lot of ways that I don't like, but it feels really good to be able to control like when I can experiment. Like, oh, I'm choosing to have longer sessions, and I'm choosing, right? So there's some agency there.
Yeah, totally.
That's great. Oh, that's so wonderful. Well, I am so glad that you started to do that offering for your current clients. And I'm imagining that you also have gotten interest from new clients that you've never worked with before. And
yes,
as well.
Yeah. So that was kind of like phase one of the experiment, was like try out longer sessions with people that I already know, and that I already know that I already do EMDR with. And then as I think that was one of the pieces that was kind of scary to me at the beginning too, was like this idea of doing intensive EMDR work with somebody that I don't really have any clinical history with. That seemed intimidating to me at the beginning. So my first part of the experiment was try longer sessions with people that I'm familiar with, working with. And then what I did is I dropped one insurance in July, and then a couple of clients that I wrapped up with for that purpose, that cleared some space. And so then I was really intentional about clearing some space. And then that's where I started the experiment of I'm only going to take new clients for intensives. And so at this point, so that was like July, August, September, where that was kind of like getting itself sorted out. And then I was like, I could then barely fit all the intensives in for like October and November. And yeah, and so it's been like, I really thought when I started doing that, that like, okay, well, I'll have these intensive clients from like September to December. And then in January, I'll have new intensive clients. So, once I'll like, hopefully I'll be able to like fill that by then.
Yep.
And it ended up like, I have a wait list that I thought would be filled for January. I don't even know when that's going to be available. And now like I started talking to some of my current clients who are doing regular weekly sessions or bi-weekly sessions. And the people, I haven't talked to everybody about it so far, but the people that I have discussed shifting into the intensive model with, like I got great feedback and interest from them too. And so it's like, there's zero shortage of clients. Therapists sometimes always like worry that there's not gonna be enough clients. Like there's zero shortage of clients. And there's also no shortage of intensive clients, which is like, I wouldn't have thought that I would be telling you that 6 months ago.
Yes. Thank you for articulating that, because I think it's one thing for me to like have been saying that, like screaming it from the rooftops.
Yes, you have.
Like, please.
I was like, maybe.
I have no one to refer to, please, and I think people are slowly like catching on to that and believing that's true. And it'll be interesting to see kind of what the demand is, down the road. But for now, like this definitely feels important. So I'm so glad that you're offering that. I'm so glad that you're talking about it. I'm so excited that you are someone that I like trust clinically, trust as a teacher who's going to be offering this guidance for other EMDR clinicians. And we can kind of loop back to that in a second, but I wanted to hop over and chat with Christie for a little bit. Yeah. Christie, what do you want to share with folks about your intensive journey in terms of like the why? And I definitely want folks to understand also kind of like where you've landed, because one thing that I really respect and appreciate about you is that you have been like laser focused, crystal clear about your branding. I kind of think of you as like a branding guru. like Christie's emailing me, like, did you see this new branding thing from Donald? Like she's just like in the branding community. And I really love, and we can kind of get to this later, I'm jumping ahead, but I really love that you have taken this intensive idea for EMDR and applied it to a niche that is, needed, and also like just feels better for you as the clinician, right? Like one thing I really love is when people make business choices and clinical choices that obviously consider the client, but also like we have to be considered, or otherwise it's not going to last, right? So if you could share that, I would love folks to learn that about you.
Yeah, I mean, so kind of like Jennifer, I heard about intensives maybe a few years ago that, had that seed and had planned on going to a training on it, and it got postponed at one point because of COVID. So then of course, we're all working, long hours during COVID. And at a certain point, I really was burned out. I mean, at one point during COVID, I self-administered the secondary traumatic stress scale. I gave it to I took it one day myself, and I scored in the severe range. And that was like a red flag for me that, I had historically worked almost exclusively with clients with complex trauma. It was really heavy. Obviously, it was heavy for all of us during COVID, but it was really getting to the point where it was taking a toll and I was really burned out. And I knew, something had to change. And so in the meantime, I had attended the training that I was supposed to attend the previous year, was offered online. And this was like right when COVID was starting. So it was, just such a godsend, really, that I had this new information. Because I when I heard about intensives, I was like, I need that in my life. I just was so excited about it, because I think it challenges the status quo. And I think that's, it's what I'm interested in doing. Like, I want to help move therapy forward, but do it in a way that is just meaningful and intentional. And there, I think the research is showing us there's just no reason why we have to walk around suffering for years when we have this amazing modality that we practice, and it can help people now. And I think, like Jennifer, people want that. I mean, if I had, I wish I had that myself years ago. I would have signed up for an intensive.
Thousands and
me too.
Thousands.
I would have said, like, yeah, where?
Are you kidding me?
Tell me where to be. I'm there.
Totally.
So, it's just, I get really excited about being able to offer that to people. So I did a training, and it was fantastic. It kind of helped me get a little bit of a framework for what intensives could look like. And then, there were some parts of it that just didn't fit with me. It just, there were some pieces that just didn't feel right to me. And so then I found your material, and I bought that intensive kit. I went through that, and I thought, okay, now this is what I've been looking for. So I kind of have taken some pieces from, all of the trainings that I've had, and also just, bring myself to it. And that's what I'm offering now. And it's just, it's incredible to be able to offer that. So I've been doing intensives for almost a year now. And the funny thing is, Jennifer has done with a lot of her existing clients. I've done no intensives with my existing client, like my pre-intensive caseload. It was all new people.
Wow.
I've worked intensively with I'm like, come on, everybody, come on over.
Oh, yes. Yes.
We're not doing the hour-long thing anymore.
Yeah.
Where it's just, it doesn't work. I think if I were to say to, anybody watching or listening to this podcast, I would say, once you try a longer session, you will never go back. Because I think that, that is what I was feeling, was how unsatisfying it felt to have to close stuff down right when you're getting to like something important, and to send that person off for another week. I was just like, this makes no sense. And now that I know there's this other option out there, why aren't we all doing that? We need more flexibility. We need some other option, and not just for clients, but like you said, for me, because I honestly I'm done. I'm done with the hour weekly plodding along. I needed it too. And so it gave me the chance to kind of schedule things in a way that it gives me more time, because like Kambria, you have in a lot of your messaging, like full is no longer the goal. And that
feels bad.
Full feels bad. And full felt really bad to me in 2020. And so, 2021 has been, I'm no longer full, and I'm really happy about that.
Yes. Things we've never heard as therapists before, right? That should be like the tagline of this whole episode. I mean,
hashtag not full.
Right? I mean, honestly, Christie, one of the things I've always appreciated about you since I've been able to work with you in the consultation program is that you are just like such an honest, straightforward person. And part of what makes you so relatable and connectable is that you're just like, this is my journey, not just with my business, but like emotionally. And I have to tell you that doing these kind of one-on-one check-ins with people, my consultees, I would say that like maybe 75% are just like, I'm fried. Like I'm beyond fried. And so I appreciate you naming what we've all been experiencing really for the last almost 2 years. And what I love that you did is that you even took it a step further, right? And you made this brand or this niche around how you might use the intensive model for like a certain content area that even feels like enlivening for you. Would you share that with us?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I, like I said, had always worked with people with, we all work with people with complex trauma. If you're an EMDR therapist, you're working with mostly people with complex trauma. We all know it's never just a car accident. So, that was my expertise. That was my specialty. That was, and, it was, just to be really transparent, it was my own lived experience as well. I have my own trauma journey. And so that, was my experience. That was kind of, my caseload, if you will. And, just again, it was getting to be, I won't say too much or kind of, it's always satisfying when you're helping somebody heal, but I just wanted something new and something different. I was sort of looking for, I wanted to instead of working with people to go from negative to neutral, I really wanted to pivot and help people go from neutral to positive. And that is probably a different client. That's a client who maybe has done some work already, who's maybe at a different point in their recovery journey, who is ready to go, okay, I've kind of dealt with this stuff. I've resolved, some pieces of my past, but now what? So I really wanted to get into the now what with people. Like now that you're sort of at maybe, an integration phase of trauma recovery, or you've reconciled some things, you're coming to terms with some things. Now what? Let's take you from good to great. And so now that's sort of what I think about is how can we help you go from good to great? Like you're good, you're doing your thing, you're living your life, you're better than you used to be, and you understand yourself in a lot of ways. But now let's go from that into who do you really want to be? What can you be? Let's look ahead. And so I felt like for me as a therapist, that was, well, as first me as a person, like I had walked that journey, like I've gone down that road myself, and I wanted to help others
because you've been there. I love that you have that authenticity to know it.
Yeah, and I wanted to help other people do that. There's nothing that gets me jazzed up more than watching somebody succeed. I really love seeing people succeed and really find, not find, but kind of reclaim who they really are without all the baggage, the garbage, the trauma. And so that is what I'm really excited about now, is really helping people go from good to great.
It kind of gives me chills because, I'm listening to and I'm thinking of all the clients that I've seen, the complex trauma, relational trauma clients who come in and we're clearing these targets of trauma out, and we do have to say goodbye in this kind of, well, your SUD is 0, you're at neutral, right? And then I noticed myself kind of sending them off to another coach or another therapist to do the work that you're talking about, right? Like when someone recovers from like sexual trauma and they're more at neutral now in their body, it's like, how do they actually develop a sexual identity, or how do they actually develop the career now that they've overcome the trigger at work? It's like, I don't get to see that part.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really cool that you're like, I want to see that part, because that part enlivens me as a person, right? And gives me energy. And I really, really believe that people in the EMDR community are going to be catching on to this. I mean, we already know that like We have, sports coaches and other types of people doing performance enhancement with EMDR. Right. And so I love that you're offering this to people in an intensive format. I think that's really cool because it's serving them and it's serving you. Like everyone's a winner there.
Right. And I think we do people a disservice. And I think we perpetuate that pathological model if we're always focused on the trauma and not that other piece. Yep. And really, you can conceptualize anything in terms of a performance enhancement. We can resolve a trauma target from a kind of enhancement kind of perspective. I mean, I think both of you do this. I mean, we've talked about it together, kind of starting with that future template, starting with we know how you have felt, but how do you want to feel? And yes, it's important. We have to do the work to resolve the things that were painful to us. But I think it really sells us short as people if we don't pay just as much, if not more, attention to, okay, let's find those golden nuggets in you. Like, yes. Where are those, where's that treasure in you that maybe has been buried, or maybe you forgot about it, but it's in there.
Yes. As I'm listening to you, I'm realizing too that this essence, that you're describing, this spirit you're describing, is actually really kind of the way that all three of us do work clinically when it comes to resourcing in phase 2 and treatment planning. And I think it's going to be so cool for you to have that balance, right? And to bring that balance to clients of like, we're not just focusing on trauma. We always resource. We always look at the adaptive. We always look at, like you called it, the gold nuggets. And I know that both of you as teachers, I know you've been doing like workshops in Virginia for intensives, and you're kind of in demand that way for people in consultation. I know that your teaching style, right, that you bring that spirit in your teaching style of like, what do you want to learn? Like, you're so learner centered. So I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about kind of why you're excited to teach in these group consult groups for EMDR that are intensive focus. Like I just want people to kind of get a sense of what lights you up there, so they can, if they wanted to, reach out to you and work with you, they could do that.
Jennifer, you want to go?
Oh, sure. I was thinking about yours. Well, what I was going to say was, about yours, Christie, was that I feel like everything that you were just describing about how you want to take your clients clinically from neutral to great, or from good to great, or okay to great. I feel like that comes across with your consultation too, because that's such a, it just is such a, it's such a match on both sides for you. Because I think that's what we're doing. And when we're like, we're bringing people from like, okay, you have your own business, or you want to have your own business, you're doing EMDR in your private practice. Like, that's great. Things are going well. You're full, even though full doesn't feel good. But like, that's like the definition of what success that we've been taught is that like, okay, if you go into private practice and you fill your schedule and you're full, then like you did it. And it's like, okay, well, I guess that's good, but it doesn't feel great. And so when you were talking, I was like, that's how I feel like what I've been doing over the past, year or so in my practice is like shifting from like, okay, like the amount of times like in my professional life that I've been like, okay, well, I did it. So like, I guess this is good. Like, it doesn't.
Yeah. Like, according to
good, but like, okay, this isn't quite what I hoped it would be like. But like, I feel like that's what intensives and the consultation about EMDR intensives helps us do. And I feel like Christie for yeah, I think that's true for all of us, that's what we're helping people do. But I feel like, especially for the work that you're doing, you're really focusing on that same message with people, both clinically and with your consultees.
Absolutely. Thank you for for saying that. That means so much, coming from you. And yes, like I'm all about empowerment. Like if I would boil down everything I do to one word, it's empowerment, because I want clients to feel empowered and I want fellow therapists to feel empowered. I am so done with that stereotype of the exhausted, burned out, resentful, bitter, angry therapist. I'm just, and there's just no need for that. There is no need at all, especially when what we do is so incredible. It's like, why? Why? And you know, Jennifer, when you were talking about how, because I mean, you are very in demand and you are very full. I know you know that you're working on tweaking that, but I don't know how you're going to turn all these people away that want to work with you. But when you were talking with a few minutes ago and saying how you were trying to figure out how to fit intensives in, I think that is a challenge. And I would just say, the goal is not to do more. Like I would say to anybody listening, like the goal is not to add more, it's to change. It's to fundamentally shift the quality of your week and of your practice by doing less and doing better, not doing more.
Yes. And I'm gonna need that clip of what you just said, like on repeat, to remind myself of that all the time.
We're gonna make a game of it. We're just gonna look at it.
Yes. Because it is totally, and I like, that's totally the goal for me too. But it's like, I have to remind myself of that, to like, in the practice of like shifting out of that mode. I always have to keep reminding myself of like, that's not the goal. The goal is not to still feel the same way, to still be working the same way, but you're doing intensives or you're working intensively. It's to shift. And you put things into words so beautifully, Christie. Like it's what you just said, that you said better than what I'm going to say right now. But it's to have that, for me, it's like to have more space, to have space in my head, space in my week, space in my day, to have space to integrate and to process and to think and to breathe and, maybe like walk outside.
Imagine that. Yeah. Well, I'm listening to you, Jennifer, and what's coming up for me is that, as the two of you, as I've gotten to get to know you, which has been so much fun, as you guys have been building up, your practices and being so innovative and just bringing your own brand and your own expertise to what you're doing, and sharing that with others, what really I notice is that your creativity space has increased, right?
Oh my God.
Like I've watched
so much.
The two of you, right, in the program for the last, what has it been, 4 or 5 months? And like, just your creativity, it's like, it's all there. It just needs space to like come out and be noticed. And you're both just really innovative business women. I have a lot of respect for you, right? I mean, you have all these ideas and they're there, but we don't get to even hear ourselves think or like really dive into what's in our heart if we're like full all the time. Right. So I didn't even think about that as a benefit until I was listening to the two of you talk about and like think about listening to you the last couple of months. It's like your creativity has skyrocketed.
Totally. And I mean, like before this past year, maybe even earlier this year, like I've always had the idea of like, oh, I want to do consultation groups and I want to do trainings and I want to, like, these were like longer term goals. And then I was like, I don't really know what to do with that. Like, I want to do, like, I like that idea, but like, I don't know what that looks like. I don't have any ideas. And I felt like I had like no creativity anymore. which felt like something that was like off, because I feel like I was, maybe like before grad school, I was like a very creative person. It got lost somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
And it definitely, like, yes, it's so much like I probably said this to both of you at some point in the past month. Like, I have never had so many ideas in my life, of like in my professional life, of like ideas for trainings, ideas for consultation groups, ideas of how to do things. And I'm like, I just need time. I just need more space. I need more time to be able to put things into motion. So that's been really, really exciting.
So cool. So cool. And Christie, I know from talking to you in our one-on-one check-ins too, that you've been such an idea person recently with all the things you want to do. And it's really cool for me to get to watch you guys have the space to do the things you're excited about, because anyone that comes to work with you as a client, anyone that comes to work with you as a consultee, they're going to feel your enthusiasm. Like, they're going to feel that you're excited about the thing you're excited about. And then that's going to make them want to do it. Right. And then everybody wins.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to give the best of me, and my best. I need that time. I need that, kind of spaciousness in my day. And I think, again, we're so indoctrinated to think in terms of like back-to-back sessions with no breaks in between, or, and that it's almost like shameful to say you don't want to do that, or that doesn't, like, you're not going to do that. and I think it's important that everyone be able to do whatever it is feels right to them. Like, maybe some people want and like have an energy level that allows them to do that, and other people don't, and that's okay. It's not about everyone has to stop what they're doing and just do an intensive a week or whatever. It's that everyone gets to do what feels right to them, without the guilt and without the kind of codependence in our businesses. We get to be we get to flourish, we get to thrive, we get to have what we want. And I know that it's a huge motivator for me, because I spent years in my life and in my career with kind of a negative cognition of I can't get what I want. And, that's no longer true. And I really want that to be the case for other people as well.
Yeah.
Well, we're starting a movement. Like, I love it. I love that. I love that we're all like business people, and we're innovators, and we're teachers, and we're helpers, and we're part of the algorithm of how this is all going to work out. Like, we are considered in that. Right. And I truly believe that whoever, has the privilege of getting to work with y'all, whether it's like branding, coaching, or like, consult services or practice building service, whatever they come to work with you for, I know and trust that they're going to feel that energy with you, and not because it's not just the content. I mean, I know y'all are so competent, but it's like, it's the attitude, it's the values. Right. And I really believe that like we can change just not mental health services for the clients, but we can actually change mental health culture for the therapists, right? If we kind of spread this way of thinking and being and business building. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yes, absolutely.
Very cool. Well, I know that we talk a lot offline. I'm grateful that y'all came and let me record one of our conversations so that other folks hear more about what we're up to. If people want to come and work with you, how can they get in touch with you? What's the best way to do that? Is it an email, website?
Yeah. So my website is simply rewire EMDR.com, which is a new baby. So it's a work in progress. But coming very soon, maybe, hopefully, we'll see. By the time this podcast is actually airing, it will be up and running. I have a new, I am offering a free EMDR Intensives Essentials mini, like I think it's going to be like right under an hour course when you opt in for email list on my website. So hopefully very soon that will be front and center. But if it is not, by the time that you get there, if you just email me, my email is jennifer@simplyrewireemdr.com, and that is probably the most reliable way to get a hold of me. But lots of good things to come to the website in the coming months.
Oh, it's so exciting. I feel like us and like everyone in the program, but I feel like we're all like the aunties of your baby business.
Right?
It's so cool. Very exciting. And Christie, how can folks get in touch with you if they're feeling inspired to reach out and get more time with you?
Yes. So they can just go to my website, christiepearl.com. Pretty simple.
It is such a gorgeous website, y'all. Like everybody in the program is like, Christie's website's amazing.
Yes, so beautiful.
Thank you. Yes, so christiepearl.com, and I would love to connect with anyone who is interested in working with me or sharing themselves with me. Love to hear from anyone.
Awesome. Well, I just appreciate you all as just beautiful humans. So thank you for being you, and thank you for sharing yourself on here with everybody. And I'm excited to hear about all the good things that are going to come for you all in 2022.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. This has been so awesome. It's such an honor to be here with you and with you, Jennifer. You're such a powerhouse. So
thank you.
We're soul sisters. We're in it. We're in it now.
Yes.
Awesome. I want to again thank Christie and Jennifer for hanging out with me and for sharing themselves with all of you. I hope the conversation felt helpful to you, inspiring to you as you think about your own clinical services that you might be offering in your practice, how you might be designing your practice to serve you first. And if this is getting you excited and you want to come hang out with me in the consultation program, it's been a blast to support really innovative thinkers like Christie and Jennifer. We are taking applications now for our September 22 cohort. This is an 8-month program where you're going to learn all about passive income systems, all about setting up therapeutic intensives in your practice, all about creating like group services, whether you want to do clinical consultation groups, whether you want to do group coaching, whether you want to do like a hybrid of, curriculum and group learning, memberships on subscription, all the things that we're doing here at Zero Disturbance. I am literally pulling back the curtain and just giving it to all my therapy friends. So whether you're an EMDR clinician or a non-EMDR clinician, all therapists are now going to be welcome to join us to redesign their practices and get clinically creative with us in 2022. And I'm very excited about that. So with all that being said, I wish y'all a very happy new year. And it's been a wild ride. And if I could wish one thing for you beyond, health and safety, is I really wish that you will step into what feels good for you next year. At least what feels better for you than it has felt the last couple years. I'm very protective of my community of therapists, and I just want all of us to be held, protected, sustained, and doing that has needed some kind of creative solutions beyond one-on-one clinical services for many of us, right? So with all that being said, I wish you all the best. Happy New Year, and I'll see you next time.